I was an unfaithful wife and asked my husband to let me sleep with another man, but he took brutal revenge, destroyed my lover, got me fired, and now uses me as a living reminder of my betrayal. My name is Fernanda, I am 38 years old, and I have been working as a real estate agent for more than a decade. I have always been a determined and vain woman with a lot of energy to achieve my goals. My husband, Ricardo, is 42 years old and works as a data analyst for a multinational corporation. He is one of those who spend the day immersed in spreadsheets and reports. We have been married for 17 years, and we have a 19-year-old daughter, Camila, who is now studying abroad. From the outside, our life has always seemed calm and stable, but inside, the cracks had been growing for a long time, and that night everything came to a head. It was a typical Thursday after a long day of work when I sat down at the kitchen table with Ricardo. I had prepared chicken with rice and salad, but we barely touched the food. My stomach was in knots. My mind was spinning with thoughts I had been repressing for months. He noticed my nervousness. He put down his fork and asked me directly, "Are you sick or do you want to break up?" That hurt me deeply. It was not that, not exactly, but it was something difficult to explain without sounding cruel, because, despite everything, I still loved him. It was just that something had died between us. I tried to tell him gently. I told him that I missed us, that I felt we lived like roommates, not like a couple. He took a deep breath and was silent for a few seconds, as if trying to find where we had gotten lost. I continued. I talked about the silence in the house since Camila left, about how every corner seemed empty, about how our conversations were limited to bills, work, and what was at the market. No affection beyond the automatic, no desire to be close. It was as if the flame had turned into embers, and now it was almost going out. Ricardo tried to interrupt me, saying that it was just a phase, that all couples go through that, but I knew it was not just that. It was something deeper. It was not just the routine. It was the indifference. The way he looked at me, and I no longer saw a woman, just a tired wife. And the worst part, I no longer looked at him with desire, with longing. Everything became an obligation. The work schedule, the dinner schedule, the bedtime. A repeated choreography, without a soul, as if we were dancing to a song that was no longer playing. Despite the discomfort, I did not want to end our marriage, not yet. The truth is, I wanted to rescue what we had lost, but I did not know how. And the worst part, I knew that inside me a part was beginning to look for that something more elsewhere, and that terrified me. To be silent was to betray myself, but to speak could destroy us. Still, I needed to say it. I needed to open the wound before it became gangrenous, and that is what I did. I looked at him and told him that I felt invisible, disconnected, needy, and lonely. He did not react as I expected. Instead of accepting my outburst, he seemed to get defensive. He asked me what I expected him to do, as if my suffering were a whim, and that hurt me even more. But at the same time, I understood that he was afraid. After all, I was always the one who kept everything under control, the one who solved things, the one who reconciled them. Now I was telling him that I did not know if I could take it anymore, and, as much as that hurt him, it hurt me even more, because deep down I still wanted him to fight for me. That night I ended up with a bitter taste. Ricardo locked himself in his office and stayed there until late, as he always did when he wanted to escape from something. I fell asleep alone, staring at the ceiling and wondering if I had done the right thing, and if that conversation had been the beginning of our new beginning or the beginning of the end. But something inside me told me that the hardest part was yet to come, because once you open the door to the truth, the house is never the same again. The next morning, the tension was still present. Ricardo greeted me with a brief "good morning," had his coffee, and went straight to the computer. The silence between us seemed even denser than the night before. I did not want to force anything either. I kept thinking about how we had gotten to this point, two strangers who shared a house, a daughter, a life, but who barely looked at each other. That hurt me more than any argument, because it was not anger, it was not a fight. It was absence. And deep down, I had been feeling that absence for a long time. I remembered the time when we could not be separated, when a caress was enough to ignite everything. We made love on the sofa, in the kitchen, in the car. It was intense. It was alive. Today, if it happened once every 3 or 4 months, it was a lot. And when it happened, it seemed more like an effort to maintain us than a moment of connection. And honestly, I no longer felt like it. Not because of him necessarily, but because of all the wear and tear, the tiredness, the routine that swallows even desire. Ricardo, to be fair, tried. There was a time when he would ask me out, make plans for short trips, suggest new things to do together. He even mentioned couples therapy. It seemed sweet to me, but artificial. I looked at him and saw effort, not desire. It was not like before, when we were effortlessly attracted to each other, without planning it. Everything he suggested seemed like a desperate attempt to decorate an empty box, like painting a cracked wall without treating the foundation. I would listen, smile, and say, "We will see." But deep down, I already knew it would not work. I could not give in anymore. And over time, he gave up too. He stopped trying to touch me, he stopped flattering me. He got used to our emptiness. And I, although I suffered, also got used to it. The routine became anesthetic. We would wake up, work, eat, sleep, and, the next day, everything would start all over again, without passion, without surprises, nothing. Just the weight of the years and the memory of what we once were. I missed myself, I missed being desired, being looked at with hunger, with desire. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a woman who was slowly fading. But I also felt guilty, because deep down I knew that he still loved me. He just did not know how to show it anymore. And maybe I had some responsibility too. Maybe I closed myself off too much, demanded too much, or maybe, the problem was that I had stopped loving like before. I did not know anymore. I was lost in my own house, in my own body. Everything seemed confusing, cloudy. And it was in this tangle of feelings that I began to harbor thoughts that until then I would have never dared to consider. That conversation from the night before was the trigger. I had let out an old pain, but in doing so, I also made room for new ideas, dangerous ideas. I did not know exactly what I wanted, but I did know what I no longer wanted. To live in the dark, to be ignored, to be invisible, to be just a memory of what I once was. And when a woman feels like that, she either gives up everything or does something. And at that moment, I was about to do something that would change everything. I just did not yet know the magnitude of the storm that was coming. A few weeks passed after that first conversation. The tension between us eased a little, but the atmosphere never returned to normal. We were going in circles. Ricardo tried to do his part. He brought flowers, prepared dinners, and even suggested I give him a massage together. I smiled, I thanked him, but everything seemed so rehearsed. And the more he tried, the more it suffocated me. That distanced me even more. It was then that I decided to do something unthinkable, something that, in my mind distorted by need and confusion, could save our marriage. One night, after another silent dinner, I asked to talk. He was already on the defensive, as if he knew a bomb was about to drop on him, and so it was. I told him I had thought a lot about us, about how we could reignite the passion. I told him that maybe the problem was that we were too closed off to each other. I told him that some people have found relief and growth in more open relationships. Upon saying this, his face froze. "Are you saying you want to be with other men?" he asked. I took a deep breath and replied, "Yes, with your permission, to explore, to find myself again and, in doing so, to find us again." He exploded. He slammed his fist on the table and called me crazy. He said I must have someone in mind. I tried to stay calm, insisting that it was not cheating, that everything would be completely honest, agreed upon and transparent. "How is this not cheating, Fernanda?" he shouted. "You want to sleep with another man? You want to touch another body? What is that then? A board game?" His words were like slaps. I knew it sounded absurd, but at that moment, I truly believed that I could separate the physical from the emotional, that it would only be a phase, that this would prevent something worse. But he continued. He said that if it was just for sex, for physical curiosity, it would be better to hire an escort. "You want a new experience? Pay for it," he said with sarcasm. I was stunned. I said it was not that I needed connection, something real. But then he smiled, a cold, cynical smile, like that of someone who has just won an argument. "Exactly," he said. You want another man? It is not just the act. You want the feeling? That makes it 1,000 times worse. And he was right. I was deceiving myself, trying to put a pretty label on an ugly desire. Shame began to take hold of me. I felt my hands sweat, and my heart was pounding. I tried to justify myself, to say that I wanted to save what was left between us, that I did not want to cheat on him, that was why I was being honest. But every word seemed to dig a deeper hole in our relationship. He looked at me with that look of disgust and disappointment. It was not hatred, it was worse. It was pure disappointment. I, who had always been the devoted, loyal, and loving wife, was there asking for permission to share the bed with another man, and thinking that made me honest. What a joke. Ricardo got up, took a deep breath and said, "You destroyed me today. But since you desire this exploration so much, then let's play fair, but on my terms." I was paralyzed. He did not scream, he did not curse me. He simply spoke with a calm that scared me. I tried to ask him what he meant by that, but he just left the room, went upstairs and left me alone with the dirty dishes, the cold food and the bitter taste of my own hypocrisy. I knew I had crossed the line. I just had no idea what he would do with it. The next day, Ricardo did not say a word. He woke up early, showered, dressed as if nothing had happened, and went to work. I was left there alone, wondering if he was just trying to process it all, or if he was already planning to leave. Anxiety was consuming me. What had been a usual silence was now a silence full of contempt. When he returned that night, he calmly called me to talk. I thought that maybe he had accepted, that the conversation would be about limits and agreements. But no, it was something else, a kind of logical trap, a cold and surgical torture. He looked at me with a calculated tone and began, "If what you want is just the act, why do you not hire someone? I will pay for it. If you want, it can be a well-built, handsome, and strong escort. Just sex, no connection. After all, that is what you said, right?" I tried to answer, but he interrupted me. "You said you needed to explore, to feel desire again, so let's make it easy. A guy who comes in, satisfies you, and leaves. No names, no emotions. That is all." My body froze because I knew he was not being serious. He was confronting me with my own inconsistency. I replied that I did not want a stranger, that I needed to connect with that person, that sex without an emotional connection made no sense to me. And then he said, "There you have it. That is what I wanted to hear. So it is not about sex, it is about another man. You do not just want the body, you want another story, another life. You want to fall in love again, and not with me." I was silent. Not because he was right about everything, but because maybe he was partly right. I was already getting emotionally involved with another person, even without having slept with him. And Ricardo knew it, even though I had not told him. His gaze was heavy, not with anger, but with someone who sees the soul of the person in front of them and does not like what they see. And that destroyed me, because I had always been proud of my ethics, of my transparency. And now, in the eyes of the man with whom I had shared almost 2 decades of my life, I was just an emotional traitor who wanted to justify her desires with pretty words. I wanted to scream at him that it was not that I still loved him, but deep down, a part of me was already elsewhere. I was no longer completely his end, perhaps, in fact, that was even worse than a physical betrayal. I stood there, trying to defend myself, but everything I said seemed weak. Ricardo did not scream or cry. He simply spoke calmly, like a judge who had already given his verdict and was reading the sentence. "You can deceive yourself all you want, Fernanda, but I will not. You want another man, not another body. Another man." And when he said that, I saw myself for the first time as he saw me, selfish, cold, inconsistent, perhaps even cruel. And worst of all, powerless before what I had caused. My castle of justifications was crumbling under the weight of the truth. When he finished speaking, he got up, walked past me, and went upstairs without saying anything else. I was left alone in the room, feeling exposed in a way I never thought anyone would be able to feel. He did not hit me, he did not scream at me, he did not humiliate me, but what he did was 1,000 times worse. He made me see who I was becoming, and at that moment, I still had no idea how much worse things could get, or how he would turn this pain into something much more difficult to face than any scream. I knew I could not beat around the bush. After that very sharp conversation, Ricardo became more introspective but, at the same time, more direct. The next day, while we were having coffee, he looked at me and said, "Who is he?" That was all, no anger in his voice, just certainty. I tried to deny it by reflex, but his expression was clear. He already knew. He just wanted to hear me admit it. I was silent for a few seconds, feeling my heart pound. Then I took a deep breath, looked down and said the name I should never have said, Marcos. Marcos was a marketing consultant with whom I collaborated regularly on high-end real estate projects. In addition, he was married and the father of 2 small children. It started with harmless messages, silly jokes on WhatsApp, and compliments about each other's work. Then came the lunches, the physical compliments, the fixed gazes, and the feeling that I had not felt for years with Ricardo began to beat inside me again, the feeling of being seen, desired, heard. It was like an addiction, one that I knew was dangerous, but that made me feel alive again. I swore to Ricardo that we had never touched, that there had been no kisses or caresses, much less sex. And it was true. But he interrupted me with a look that said, "That does not change anything." And maybe it did not, because emotionally I was already with another person. Even though my body had not crossed the line, my heart had already taken a big step towards betrayal. Ricardo listened to everything in silence, no reaction, not a word. He just took a deep breath and kept his gaze fixed, as if he were analyzing what he would do to me after the confession. After a while, he got up from his chair, took his mobile phone and said, "If you really want to save our marriage, Fernanda, now it will be on my terms." I tried to ask him what he meant, but he just smiled sadly and went upstairs. Later, I saw that he had locked his office and spent hours in front of the computer. I had no idea what he was planning, but I sensed that he was preparing something important, something cold, something that would put me right where he thought I deserved to be. In the following days, he stopped touching on the subject. We pretended to be unbearably normal, but he was always on his cell phone, checking files, social media, talking to who knows who. I began to fear what he might discover. I began to regret having confessed. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because he would not forgive me. He was going to use it as ammunition and, as a data analyst, he was methodical, precise. When Ricardo decided to destroy something, he did it with a surgical elegance. And this time, the target was me. I tried to sleep, but I would wake up in the middle of the night with my heart in my throat. I knew the worst was yet to come, and ironically, I was the one who brought all this home. I opened the door, I let him in, and now it was too late to try to close it, because Marcos was not just a distant fantasy. He existed, he had a face, he had intentions, and I knew, deep down, that he also wanted to cross the line. He was just waiting for my consent, but before that happened, Ricardo decided to take matters into his own hands. I do not know exactly when Ricardo started connecting the dots, but I do know that he suddenly knew too much. One day, he called me and, very calmly, asked me, "Does Marcos's last name start with an S or a Z?" I was paralyzed. "Fernanda, you do not have to lie anymore. I already found him." With his mobile phone in his hand, he began to show me his profiles, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, company photos, events, even meetings I did not even remember. He knew exactly who the man I was emotionally involved with was, and he would not stop there. It was then that the lowest blow came. Ricardo found Marcos's wife, Daniela, a real estate agent like me, young, beautiful, and a new mother of a 4-month-old baby. When he showed me her profile with photos of her family, her pregnancy, and her children, my heart sank. I already knew that Marcos was married, of course, but I had always imagined her as a distant, cold, and disinterested woman. That is how he described her. Seeing Daniela smiling with the baby in her arms, hugging Marcos at children's parties, made me feel dirty, small, miserable. Ricardo did not say anything immediately. He just showed me, looked at me with disgust, and left. Later, I heard him talking on the phone. He was trying to be discreet, but the tension in his voice was unmistakable. "You are about to find out who this guy you share a bed with really is," he said. That left me paralyzed. I did not know if he was talking to Daniela herself, to someone from the company, or to someone known. I just knew that he had taken the first step and that he would not stop until he destroyed everything. The next day, he asked me for my cell phone password. Without arguing, I gave it to him. I knew that resisting would only make things worse. He checked everything: WhatsApp, photos, call history. He found the messages exchanged with Marcos, some more daring, others simply full of emotional tension. Nothing explicit, but all too intimate. Ricardo did not scream. He simply saved the conversations, took screenshots, and transferred them to a USB drive. He was putting together a file, and I knew exactly who he would send it to. I could not forget Daniela's face. I felt like a child about to be called by the principal, but it was not just fear. It was a bitter mix of regret, shame, and panic. Not because I cared about Marcos anymore, but because my world was about to collapse. I, who thought I had everything under control, who had the situation in my hands, was now a hostage to the surgical patience of a wounded man, an intelligent, cold, and meticulous man. Ricardo was hurt and had decided to take revenge as he knew best, with precision, with justice, and with cruelty. I wanted to ask him to stop, I wanted to beg him, but something told me it was too late. And deep down, a part of me knew I deserved it. Not only for having cheated on Ricardo, but for having believed Marcos, for having entered a dirty game, for having played like a novice. And now, as I calmly watched Ricardo put together his puzzle of revenge, I understood that his pain did not come from an isolated act. It came from the destruction of everything he thought I was. And when a man like Ricardo stops admiring you, there is nothing left to save. It was a Tuesday morning when Ricardo finally made his move. I was in the shower when I heard him talking on the speaker of his cell phone. I did not recognize the voice instantly, but when I got out of the shower and went into the living room, I understood everything. It was Marcos. Ricardo had called him without telling me, and the tone of the conversation chilled me. "So, you want to be with my wife?" Ricardo asked with a terrifying calm. "Okay, I will let you, but only if you let me go out with yours too." The silence on the other end was deafening. Marcos choked, and that is when the crisis began. Marcos tried to change the subject, saying that he had misunderstood, that it had never been more than a friendship. Ricardo laughed and said he had proof: conversations, screenshots, audio recordings. "Your wife will be delighted to know that you fell in love with the competition's broker while she was taking care of the newborn." Marcos was the one who hung up then, but Ricardo did not stop there. He opened his laptop and located Daniela. He contacted her directly through social media. He sent her a cold, objective message with the evidence attached and included my name, my face, my guilt. Daniela responded 2 days later. It was enough to distress me. Her response was brief: "Thank you for opening my eyes." Shortly after, we learned that she had left home with the children. Marcos tried to contact Ricardo by phone and even sent me desperate messages, but the damage was already done. Ricardo had taken him down in a single blow, and I was used as a key piece of his revenge. The file he put together was not limited to Marcos's wife. Ricardo also sent it to the company where Marcos worked as a consultant. In less than a week, Marcos was dismissed from his position for inappropriate conduct and conflict of interest. His contracts were frozen. The reputation he had built over the years was shattered by the screenshots and accusations of emotional harassment at work. Ricardo did not reveal anything publicly, but he knew exactly who to send the information to, which departments to contact, and who to talk to. He did it all behind the scenes, like a war strategist. While Marcos tried to pull himself together, I watched attentively the destruction caused by a decision that, at first, I thought would save my marriage. And Ricardo went on with his life as if he had just finished a task. He slept soundly, ate well, even went back to the gym. When I tried to talk about what he had done, he simply said, "You started it." I just finished it. I knew he was not lying, and there was nothing I could do. His revenge was not loud, it was surgical, cold, and painfully effective. I thought I would be the protagonist of the story, but I ended up being just the fuse for the hell he decided to unleash. By then, I already knew that our marriage would never be what it was again. The trust was dead, the admiration had evaporated. Now only the punishment remained. Ricardo did not hit me, he did not cheat on me, he did not humiliate me in public, but in silence, he destroyed me from the inside, letting me see everything I had caused. And that, perhaps, was much worse than any scream. The hell of a guilty conscience, fed by a cruel but deserved justice. And the worst part was that I still had no idea what else he was capable of doing. After the earthquake that Ricardo caused in Marcos's life, he turned his gaze to me, and it was then that the revenge stopped being silent. He called me to talk with a calm that gave me chills and told me that I would have to leave the company for an indefinite period. He had already written a fake email to my supervisor, informing her that I had health problems in the family and that I needed to take a leave of absence. He gave me 1 day to send it. He did not ask me if I wanted to, he ordered, and I obeyed. For the first time in my life, I felt like an employee of my own home. He also forbade me from going out alone. He said it was not for my safety, but so that I would not have time to think of new plans. He took my personal cell phone and left me only with my old cell phone, one of those simple ones with a physical button and no internet access. He said it was to help me reconnect with the real world. It was humiliation disguised as irony. When I needed to use my laptop to respond to a former client, he would stay by my side the whole time, watching every key, every sigh. And it was not jealousy. It was pure dominance, control, disguised punishment. I spent days crying in the bathroom, with the tap on so he would not hear me. I felt shame, guilt, but also a silent rage. Because yes, I had made a mistake, but did I deserve to live like a prisoner? I began to wonder if what he really wanted was to stay married or if he just wanted to have me around so he could continue to punish me little by little. He said he still loved me, but it was a love that sounded more like possession than affection, a hurtful, toxic, and extremely methodical love. He went out of his way to remind me daily of what I had caused, and the cruelest part was that he never raised his voice, he never insulted me. He did everything with such a calculated coldness that I felt like an experiment. He was testing my limits, seeing how far he could go without crossing the line of what was acceptable. Meanwhile, Marcos disappeared from the map. Daniela did not respond anymore, and I continued to live in a house that seemed like a tomb for everything I once loved. Every wall reminded me of the betrayal. Every look he gave me was a knife elegantly plunged. Nothing bled on the outside, but inside, I no longer recognized myself. At one point, I tried to resume the conversation. I told him I was sorry, that I wanted to rebuild. He just said, "You have no credit left, Fernanda. Just obey." That destroyed me more than any scream, because I realized that he no longer wanted a wife, he wanted a maid. And the worst part, I accepted, out of fear, out of guilt, out of cowardice. I was no longer in charge of my own will. I was a shadow of what I had been, trying to survive day after day in a marriage that seemed like a prison with flowers on the windows. I knew he no longer trusted me, and with reason, but what I did not expect was to become so insignificant in the eyes of someone who once considered me his everything. I was the love of his life, and now I was the living memory of the pain he carried, a constant reminder of the woman who destroyed a home, a trust, a history. And yet, he kept me close, as if he wanted to make sure I never forgot it, that I never recovered, that he never let me go. It was a cloudy Saturday when everything changed again. Ricardo spent the whole morning in silence, shuffling papers and listening to classical music, something he only did when he was preparing something important. Around noon, he called me. I was on the porch, trying to breathe some air that would not overwhelm me with guilt. He appeared at the door and said in a low voice, "Come up. I want to talk to you." I went up. The room was tidy, the bed made, and he was standing, looking out the window. "Today you are going to show me that you still want to be here," he said without looking at me. I did not understand. I asked him what he meant. He turned slowly, looked me in the eyes, and ordered, "Kneel." That left me frozen. He had never spoken to me like that. It was a mixture of order and coldness that paralyzed my body. "You said you wanted to win me back, right? Well, start now." I did not answer. I simply obeyed. I knelt there on the floor of our room in silence. I felt a tear run down my face, but he remained impassive. He approached me, lifted my face with his fingers and said, "Today I rewrite the rules, and you will accept them all." He took me to the bed, not gently, but firmly. He undressed me slowly, piece by piece, as if he were stripping me of every layer of the woman I had been. His caresses were not violent, but they were not tender either. He wanted to mark his territory, to possess me, to turn me into a living reminder of his own pain. And I let him, because a part of me felt I deserved it. A part of me still wanted to belong to him, and another, quieter part just wanted to end it all once and for all, to end the guilt, the fear, the eternal punishment. But he was not willing to release me. It was intense, it was hard, it was dominant. When he finished, he left me alone on the bed and left the room. I was left there, naked, covered only by shame. I did not cry. I could not. It was as if my body had shut down, as if only the shell remained. And yet, within that emptiness, something told me that this was just the beginning. Ricardo did not want sex. He wanted control, emotional revenge. He wanted me to remember every wrong decision. He wanted me to carry the guilt like a chain tied to my ankle, dragging it through the hallways of that house until my last day. Since then, he has changed. He has become someone colder, more distant, but present enough to keep the punishment active. He watches me, he tests me, he manipulates me. And I, who used to be a woman full of opinions, energy, life, now I am just someone who obeys, who survives, who waits. I wanted to say that I regret everything, and I do, but there is something worse than regret. Knowing that even if I regret it 1,000 times, I will never be forgiven, I will never be seen by him in the same way, I will never be loved again. Only tolerated. Today I am an emotional prisoner, a piece on the shelf of the destroyed marriage that we pretend to keep standing. Sometimes I think about leaving, about starting over, but for some reason that not even I understand, I stay. Maybe out of fear, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of cowardice, or maybe because I know that this is the punishment I chose for myself. And you? Do you think what he did was too cruel, or did I deserve every second of this new life? Leave your opinion in the comments.